The crystalline chandeliers of Nebula's edge cast prismatic shadows across Marcus Cole's face as he traced the rim of his empty whiskey glass. Around him, Neo-Singapore's elite chattered in dozens of languages, their conversations mixing with the soft hum of anti-grav servers gliding between tables. "Another Centaurian whiskey, Mr. Cole." The sommelier, Taris, materialized at his shoulder with practiced stealth. Marcus nodded, studying the man's perfectly pressed quantum fabric suit and carefully neutral expression. Even after 3 years as a regular, Taris still treated him with calculated deference. "And I believe I'm ready to order," Marcus said, his augmented eye scanning the holographic menu floating above the table. The prices made even his considerable wealth ache. "The chef's special. The one that requires advanced certification." Taris's eyebrows lifted a fraction. "An adventurous choice, sir. I'll need to verify your credentials." Marcus pressed his thumb to the menu scanner. 3 years ago, he would have been monitoring exit routes, analyzing threat vectors. Now he just felt empty as his military contractor's license and banking data scrolled past. "Everything appears to be in order," Taris bowed slightly. "The chef will begin preparations immediately. Estimated time, 45 minutes. Marcus watched him glide away, then turned to stare out the window. 100 stories below, Neo-Singapore's streets pulsed with neon and plasma, endless streams of hover cars weaving between towering arcologies. The whiskey arrived, amber liquid catching the light. Marcus took a slow sip, letting the smoky flavor coat his tongue. The restaurant had filled up while he waited, the usual mix of corporate royalty and old money. A Centaurian trade minister's crystalline carapace sparkled at a corner table. Time crawled. Marcus ordered another whiskey, then another. The conversation around him grew louder as other patrons received their exotic dishes, flame-grilled Jovian squid, Martian cave eel, delicacies that cost more than most people made in a year. Finally, Taris returned, followed by 2 servers pushing a covered anti-grav cart. The sommelier's face was carefully composed, but something in his eyes made Marcus's old instincts stir. "Your special order, Mr. Cole." Taris gestured and the servers lifted the silver dome with practiced flourish. Marcus's glass crashed to the floor. Bound to the cart with shimmering force restraints was a young woman. Her skin was a deep iridescent purple that seemed to shimmer in the chandelier light. Dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders, framing a face of otherworldly beauty. But it was her eyes that froze Marcus in place, silver irises filled with terror and desperate intelligence. She was gagged, but he could see her throat working, trying to speak. Their eyes met and suddenly Marcus's mind exploded with foreign emotions, fear, rage, hopeless despair washing over him in waves. "Is everything satisfactory, sir?" Taris asked smoothly. "I assure you she's been properly sedated for optimal." "What is this?" Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "As requested, the rarest delicacy in our catalog. One of the last empaths. Their neural tissue is said to produce the most extraordinary sensory experiences." Taris's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Shall we proceed with the preparation?" Marcus looked back at the woman, the person they were presenting as his dinner. She had stopped struggling against the restraints, but her eyes burned into his. Another wave of emotion hit him, weaker this time but clear as words, "Help me. Please." 3 years of carefully maintained indifference shattered like his whiskey glass on the floor. Marcus's augmented eye was already mapping the room, cataloging threats, plotting vectors, old habits resurging with terrifying ease. "Is there a problem, Mr. Cole?" Taris's hand was sliding toward his jacket where Marcus's combat implants detected an energy signature. Marcus smiled, all teeth. "No problem at all." His hand found the environmental controls built into the table. "Just need to adjust the lighting." With a flick of his fingers, Marcus overloaded the plasma chandeliers. The crystals exploded in a shower of sparks and glass, plunging the restaurant into chaos. Screams erupted as darkness fell, broken only by emergency strips along the floor and the city's neon glow through the windows. Marcus moved before Tari's could draw his weapon, his cybernetic reflexes dormant for years sparking to life as he vaulted over the table. His fist connected with Tari's jaw with practiced precision, dropping the sommelier before he could fire. The two servers reached for their own weapons, but Marcus was already past them, his augmented eye piercing the darkness to highlight the control panel on the woman's restraints. One sharp blow shattered it, and the force fields flickered out. She fell forward and Marcus caught her. She was lighter than he expected and warm, so obviously undeniably alive. He pulled the gag from her mouth as shouts and running footsteps approached from multiple directions. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded, throat working. Yes, her voice was hoarse but musical, with an accent he couldn't place. "Then run." He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the kitchen. Behind them, security officers burst through the main doors, pulse rifles charging with an ominous whine. They crashed through the kitchen's swinging doors as energy bolts sizzled past. Cooks and servers scattered, dropping plates and pans. Marcus's combat systems highlighted optimal paths through the chaos, threat assessment scrolling across his vision. "Exit route," he muttered, scanning. There, a service elevator at the back. But between them and escape stood 3 more security guards, weapons raised. "Freeze!" one shouted. The purple-skinned woman beside him made a strange keening sound. The guards suddenly staggered, clutching their heads. Marcus didn't waste the opportunity, launching himself forward. A kick sent the first guard's weapon flying, an elbow strike dropped the second. The third managed to fire, but Marcus was already moving, the energy bolt scorching the wall where he'd been standing. He grabbed the last guard's arm, twisted, and slammed him into a prep table. Pots and ingredients went flying as the man slumped unconscious. "Nice trick," Marcus said, turning back to the woman. She was breathing hard, one hand pressed to her temple. "It hurts to do that," she gasped. "Can't do it again soon." More footsteps pounded behind them. Marcus grabbed her hand again and ran for the elevator, slapping the call button. The doors slid open agonizingly slowly. They dove inside just as more energy bolts filled the kitchen. Marcus smashed the button for the garage level, then put his fist through the control panel. The elevator lurched downward as alarms began to wail throughout the building. "I'm Lyra," the woman said suddenly, still catching her breath. "Thank you for..." She gestured vaguely at the chaos they'd left behind. "Marcus. And don't thank me yet." He checked his weapons, a concealed needle gun in his jacket, a monoblade in his boot. Not nearly enough for what was coming. This is about to get much worse. "Why?" She studied him with those incredible silver eyes. "Why did you help me?" Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. 3 years of expensive therapy, of building a new life, of pretending he didn't see the darkness lurking beneath Neo Singapore's glittering surface, all undone in an instant because he couldn't watch someone suffer. Because maybe he was still the person he tried so hard to stop being. "Because you're not dinner," he said finally. "You're a person. And I used to be someone who helped people." The elevator shuddered to a halt. Marcus drew his needle gun as the doors opened onto the dark parking garage. "Used to be?" Lyra asked softly. Marcus checked the shadows for movement. "Yeah. Looks like I still am. Hope I'm not too rusty." The garage was a maze of luxury vehicles, their polished surfaces reflecting the sparse emergency lighting. Marcus's augmented eye highlighted heat signatures, security teams converging from multiple directions. They had maybe 2 minutes before being surrounded. "My car is on level 3, he muttered. "We need..." "They're blocking the ramps," Lyra interrupted. When he glanced at her, she tapped her temple. "I can sense them. Many minds, all focused on us. Angry. Afraid. Afraid?" Marcus raised an eyebrow as they crouched behind a hover limo. Of you. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. They know who you were. Security feeds showed your face. The teams were getting closer. Marcus cursed under his breath. 3 years of peace had made him sloppy. His car was too far, his weapons too few. But his combat implants were spinning up old protocols, presenting options. How good are you at holding your breath? He asked. Lyra's eyes widened as she followed his gaze to the garbage disposal chute in the wall. You can't be serious. Maintenance tunnel network runs through the whole building. He was already moving, keeping low between vehicles. Unless you prefer to go back upstairs. She shuddered. No, but... Pulse rifle fire cut off her protest, turning a nearby luxury crawler into slag. They sprinted for the chute as more shots filled the air. Marcus's enhanced reflexes let him dodge most, but he felt one graze his shoulder, leaving a line of fire. They reached the chute. Marcus kicked the access panel open and helped Lyra inside, feet first. There's a maintenance platform 2 levels down. She hesitated for just a moment, then slid into the darkness. Marcus followed just as the security teams rounded the corner, their shot sparking off the closing panel. The chase had only begun. And somewhere in the city below, old debts and darker secrets waited to be called in. The chute was a tight fit, especially for someone Marcus's size. They plummeted through darkness, the smooth walls offering no purchase. Marcus counted seconds, calculating their descent speed, then grabbed Lyra's arm with one hand and shot his monoblade into the wall with the other. The blade screamed against metal as it slowed their fall, sending sparks flying. They hit the maintenance platform hard enough to knock the wind from his lungs. You know, Lyra gasped, untangling herself from him, when I hoped someone would rescue me, I didn't expect quite this much falling. Marcus couldn't help but laugh as he got to his feet, checking for pursuit. Sorry to disappoint. I'm a bit out of practice at the whole heroic rescue thing. I wouldn't say disappointed, she brushed herself off, somehow managing to make even that simple movement graceful. Though I do have questions. Many, many questions. Later. Marcus's augmented vision pierced the gloom, highlighting a service door. Right now we need to. His combat system screamed a warning. He tackled Lyra as something whistled through the space where they'd been standing. A figure dropped onto the platform, security, but different. Professional. Dressed in black combat gear with the Culinary Consortium's logo gleaming on the shoulder. The operative's monowhip lashed out again, nearly taking Marcus's head off. He rolled, pushing Lyra toward the door. Run. She ran. The whip cracked again, wrapping around Marcus's arm. Pain lanced through him as the molecular sharp edge bit into his jacket, but his cyber-reinforced bones held. He grabbed the whip and pulled, yanking the operative off balance. They crashed together in a fury of strikes and counters. The operative was good, augmented reflexes, combat implants probably better than Marcus's aging models. But Marcus had something implants couldn't give, decades of experience and the muscle memory that came with it. He took hits, felt ribs crack, tasted blood, but slowly, methodically, he wore the operative down. A kick to the knee, an elbow to the throat, finally a precise strike to the temple that dropped them unconscious. Marcus staggered to the door, his wounds already starting to throb. Lyra waited just inside, silver eyes wide with concern. You're hurt. I'll live. He retrieved the operative's weapon and cred chip. But we need to move. That wasn't regular security. It was consortium. They'll have more coming. The Culinary Consortium? Lyra's voice shook slightly. They're the ones who captured me. Who supply people like me to restaurants. Yeah. Marcus checked the service tunnel, clear for now. And I just made myself their enemy by taking their property. He gave her a grim smile. Hope you're ready for a chase, because it's going to be a long night. The maintenance tunnels wound through Neo Singapore's underbelly like arteries, carrying them deeper into the city's shadows. Marcus's augmented eye painted their path in infrared as they moved, his combat systems constantly scanning for pursuit. Beside him, Lyra moved with surprising grace despite her ordeal, her purple skin taking on an almost phosphorescent quality in the darkness. "We need a plan," she said after they'd put some distance between themselves and the restaurant. "They'll have locked down all official transport by now." "Already on it." Marcus paused at an intersection, checking coordinates. "I know someone who can get us off-grid transport. Old contact from my hunting days." Assuming she's still, he froze, his audio implants picking up something in the tunnel behind them. The whisper-quiet sound of tactical boots on metal. "How many?" Lyra whispered, clearly sensing his tension. "Too many." They ran. Behind them, the whispers became thundering footsteps as their pursuers abandoned stealth for speed. Energy bolts lit up the tunnel, turning ancient pipes into molten slag. Marcus fired back with his stolen weapon, more to slow them down than with any hope of hitting them. The tunnel ended in a maintenance shaft, a straight drop down into darkness. Marcus's map showed it connected to the old subway system, long abandoned after the city went vertical. Their only chance. "Remember what I said about falling?" he asked. Lyra looked down the shaft, then back at the approaching lights. "I'm starting to think you only know one escape plan." "It's a classic." He grabbed her hand. "Ready?" She squeezed his hand. "No. But yes." They jumped just as the consortium teams rounded the corner. The shaft dropped away beneath them, wind rushing past. Marcus's targeting systems calculated their trajectory, highlighting possible grab points. There, a defunct power cable crossing the shaft. He reached out with his free hand, praying his aging augments could take the strain. They hit the cable hard. Pain lanced through Marcus's shoulder as synthetic muscles stretched to their limit, but they held. The cable swung them in an arc, depositing them roughly on a maintenance platform far below their pursuers. "This way." Marcus pulled Lyra through a rusted doorway into the abandoned subway tunnel. Ancient emergency lights still cast a sickly glow over empty tracks and crumbling concrete. "They're still coming," Lyra warned, pressing a hand to her temple. "So many minds, all focused on us." "On me." She stumbled, and Marcus caught her. "I'm worth too much to them. They'll never stop. Then we'll keep running." He helped her over the tracks. "I didn't spend 3 years trying to be a better person just to let them turn you into dinner." She studied him for a moment, those silver eyes seeming to peer into his soul. "You're nothing like they said humans would be." "Yeah, well," he checked their position on his mental map. "Maybe I'm trying to make up for being exactly like that for too long." The explosion rocked the tunnel behind them, the consortium teams blasting their way down. But ahead, Marcus's augmented vision picked out what he'd been looking for, a maintenance door marked with ancient Chinese characters. "Unauthorized access prohibited." "My contact's safe house is through there," he said. "Assuming she hasn't moved it. Assuming she doesn't shoot us on sight. Assuming a lot of things, actually." Lyra laughed despite everything. "You're not very good at reassurance, are you? Better at shooting things." He forced the door open. "Ready to trust a reformed bounty hunter with questionable plans?" She glanced back at the approaching lights, then met his eyes with a smile that made his synthetic heart skip a beat. "Lead the way, reformed bounty hunter." They slipped through the door just as another explosion lit up the tunnel. As it slammed behind them, Marcus knew with absolute certainty that his carefully constructed life of luxury and isolation was over. He'd thrown it all away for a stranger with purple skin and silver eyes. And somehow, for the first time in 3 years, he felt alive.